Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is Angelina Ceja with AgSafe. I am here to just present Jonathan Herrera, who is our outreach manager for CalSavers Retirement Savings Board. He's going to be presenting a CalSavers webinar. We're really excited to be able to bring Jonathan here remotely. With that, I'm going to introduce Jonathan. Jonathan, whenever you are ready to go, a couple of just like housekeeping items. We are recording this webinar and we'll have it available in about a week or so on our website for those individuals that perhaps have colleagues or others that might be wanting to listen in. For those of you that maybe missed the opportunity, we also are going to be doing, for those of you that possibly again have colleagues or others, a Spanish version of this on Thursday. Please go ahead, and you don't need to turn on your cameras. So if you want to just go ahead and you can stop your video. The other thing is, if you want to ask questions, I will be monitoring the Q&A under the chat function. So you can just type in your question in the chat function and I will read them out to Jonathan at the end of his presentation. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions. With that, Jonathan, if you're ready to go.
Absolutely, Angelina. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you to AgSafe for organizing this and inviting us and giving us the opportunity to talk to you guys. I'm just going to turn on my video for just a moment so that you can see that I'm a real person as we get started here. And thank you all for joining us today. I know that with everything going on in the state, I'm sure that you, as ag employers in particular, have a lot that you're dealing with, pandemic going on. Some of you may also be dealing with the fires. So, obviously we are hoping the best for, yourselves and your teams to remain safe and healthy. And we really appreciate all of the hard work that you and your teams do to keep our state and the country going and fed. So, thank you so much for joining us today with everything you have going on. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
I knew that was going to take all day too. I knew that was tough.
Really quickly, if you guys don't mind, please mute your microphone so that we can try to minimize the background noise as much as possible. But my goal for us today is just to sort of give you guys a little background of the program, tell you a little bit about the history so you know how it got started and why we got here. And then we will talk a little bit about what the program looks like and what your role as an employer, particularly if you're in the HR dealing with payroll portion of your business, what it would look like to facilitate the program for yourself and for your employees. So with that, thanks again for being here today and for giving us the opportunity, and we'll get started. Again, like I said, I usually like to start by giving you a little bit of background and talking about how this program came to be, and talk a little bit about the situation that exists in the state of California that sort of prompted the legislature to act and to create this program. And what it comes down to is that, nearly half of Californians are projected to retire into economic hardship. And we think that a key driver of that is that there's 7.5 million Californians throughout the state who are working, right? They're going to work every day, they're playing by the rules, but they lack access to a workplace-based retirement program. And we think that that's particularly important because the research shows that employees with access to a workplace-based retirement savings program are 15 times more likely to be saving and be on a path towards retirement security. And that statistic actually goes up to 20 times more likely if the program features automatic enrollment, which is something that we're proud to say CalSavers does feature, and we'll talk about in more detail throughout the program today. Drilling it down just to the agriculture industry in California, huge potential impact for, not only employers, but for employees in the state. We've identified more than 6,500 ag businesses representing more than, close to 340,000 employees, in particular the farm labor contractors and crew leaders, more than 950 firms with almost 120,000 employees. So again, potentially huge impact for this industry. So knowing that the best way to get people saving and on the path towards retirement security is through the workplace, Back in 2016, the California legislature passed a bill. It was Senate Bill 1234. It was sponsored by Senator Kevin De Leon, former Senator Kevin De Leon. Really did two things. Number one, obviously, it gave us the green light to start creating this program and build it up so that it'd be ready for employers. But number two, it created a new mandate on employers. And I think that that's probably one of the huge reasons why you all are joining us today. And what that says is that if you have a business and you have more than 5 employees and you're not currently offering an employer-sponsored retirement plan, so we're talking about things like pensions, 401ks, there are a couple of other programs available. We actually have in a slide or two, I've got a list of those qualifying programs. I'll leave it up on the screen for a moment, but it's in the frequently asked questions on our website. But if you have 5 or more employees and you're not currently offering a retirement plan, then you will need to either begin offering an employer-sponsored plan. So you could go out on the private market and find something like a pension or a 401k, or you can register for CalSavers and facilitate our program for your employees. When we're looking at your employees, we're looking at your employees that you have with California W-2 wages. So if you're contracting for labor, they probably won't count if your labor contractor is the one who's issuing the W-2. But any California W-2 employee that you have that's 18 years or older and has a social security number or an ITIN will be counted towards your employee roster and should be given the opportunity to participate in CalSavers if you decide to register for CalSavers. So that includes all of your part-time, full-time, seasonal employees. H-2A workers also fall under this category because they're W-2'd and they're 18 years or older and they have a social security number. And the way we measure that is by looking at the quarterly employee filing reports that you do with EDD, the DE9C. Every December, we'll look at your previous 4 quarters and average them out for the year. So if your average for the previous year turns out to be more than 5, then you'll fall under this category, and you'll be required at some point to either offer a retirement savings program from the market or facilitate CalSavers. And we'll get into the deadlines based on the size of business in just a second. But before I do that, I do want to note that CalSavers is not intended to replace or compete with employer-sponsored plans. The goal of the legislation was to eliminate this access gap, was to make sure that no matter where you work, no matter who you are, you have access to the tools that you need to be able to save for yourself for retirement. So if we see more businesses starting 401k plans or pensions or other things, we'll count that as a win. It's not about how many employers sign up for CalSavers and how many employees begin saving with CalSavers, but really, again, addressing that access gap statewide. So moving on to, or going back to that, the new mandate, the deadlines for compliance roll out over the next couple of years based on the size of your business. So it's important to note that, we launched the program statewide on July 1st of last year. And when we did that, it became open for all eligible businesses. So even if you're in the 2nd or 3rd category, if you're interested in getting started early, you're welcome to join us as soon as you're ready. But you will be required, unfortunately, to register, based on the size of your business over these next couple of years. So the first deadline is actually coming up pretty soon. We are within 60 days of the first one, and that's September 30th of 2020. If your business has, again, an average over the year of more than 100 employees. That deadline's actually extended. It was originally on June 30th of this year, but again, with everything going on in the state, we knew that employers needed to focus on their immediate needs before worrying about this. And, as the state starts looking towards recovery, we're really hoping that employers will see this as an opportunity to help their employees short and long-term financial stability and see, CalSavers or similar private market programs as part of your recovery effort that you can help your employees with. The next deadline is going to be for businesses with more than 50 employees. They'll have until June 30th of 2021, and then the last bucket will be the 5 or more employees. They'll have until June 30th of 2022. And just in case there are any businesses on this webinar with less than 5 employees, just want to note that employers with less than 5 employees are not subject to the mandate. You can't register. Your employees can't be listed for automatic enrollment. But we did open the program for individual participation. So if you work for a very small business, or if you happen to be self-employed or a contractor, you can go to our website, CalSavers.com, and set up your own account at your convenience and start saving for yourself whenever you're ready. Let's see. So I mentioned the list of qualifying retirement plans. So again, the goal of the legislation was increasing access to retirement plans throughout the state. So any one of these qualified plans will qualify you for an exemption for the CalSavers mandate. It means you're satisfying your responsibilities as an employer. But if you don't choose to go with one of these programs on the private market, you will be required to register for CalSavers and begin facilitating your employees' access to this program. How does it work? Or how will we know? How will you know as an employer? We've actually begun issuing notices to all of the employers throughout the state that we've identified as, subject to this first deadline, the September 30th deadline. So many of you have probably already received either an email from us or a letter in the mail from us saying that we've identified you as a CalSavers eligible employer and encouraging you to register by the deadline. If you didn't receive your invitation, and you know that you should have, so you're not sponsoring an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k, and you haven't received your notice, it's possible that we didn't get good information on your business, and we've tried. So it might be a good idea to reach out to us to make sure that you get it. If you're an exempt employer, if you're already sponsoring a 401k and you didn't get a notice from us, it's probably because we were able to identify you as already satisfying the mandate. So there's nothing that you need to do. If you happen to already be sponsoring a 401k or a pension and you get a notification from us, then that means that, we have you on the list. We weren't able to identify that you were already offering a plan. So you might want to contact us just to certify your exemption so we can take you off of the list, but that's not a required step. If you're sponsoring a program, you're good to go. All right. A couple of other key features I'd like to talk about CalSavers before getting into, really how it works. I've mentioned this before, and we'll go over it again as we talk about how the program works. But number one, it does feature automatic enrollment for the employees, but we see it as completely voluntary for them because they do have the ability to opt out at any time, and they can opt back in at any time. And we'll go over what that looks like in just a minute. The second sort of key feature that I like to talk about at the beginning is to describe a little bit about how we created the program, what it looks like. And we designed it as a public-private partnership. So, a lot of times we get some concerns about, the state's ability to run a program like this. And we get it. And we want to assure everybody that the program is actually professionally managed, and all of the investments are professionally managed by private sector financial service companies that we contracted with to administer the program and to do all of the investments. So what you're getting is, the expertise of these private sector financial firms that run these types of program as their business, but you're getting all of that with oversight from, a public board chaired by the state treasurer, which is, obviously the group that I work for. And then the third key feature that I like to mention at the beginning is that we're building this at zero cost to the state and the taxpayer and the employer. There are no fees for the employer to offer this program. And as far as the startup goes, we're operating on a really small startup loan that we got from the general fund that we're required by law to pay back with interest. So once the program is up and running, it's going to be entirely self-sustaining, based on the fees that we charge the savers, the employees. Which means that this is going to be a huge net positive for the state once it's up and running, because not only is it not costing the state anything to operate the program, but if we get more folks saving and self-sufficient in their retirement, they'll be less dependent on public services once they reach retirement age, or once they reach an age where they can't work anymore. So get more people saving and self-sufficient, and do it at zero cost to the state and taxpayers. A win-win for everybody. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what facilitating CalSavers looks like for you as the employer. So, one of the first things that we did when the legislation passed back in 2016 was we gathered a group of stakeholders that represented both, the consumer community groups and stuff like that, labor organizations, but also employers, actual small business owners, chambers, industry associations, And what we wanted to know from those groups in particular, the groups that represented employers, is what is it about the programs on the existing market that make it difficult for employers to offer this type of program for their employees? And by and large, we kept hearing the same 3 hurdles reported by these business owners and by their associations. Number 1 is the administrative burden. It takes a lot of research to identify the right plan for your program. And then there's ongoing stuff. There's audits and monitoring of fees and investments. So it's a big lift for employers. Number 2 is the fees. It can be expensive. There's startup fees, there's ongoing costs, there's auditing costs for maintaining a private sector plan. And then of course, all of that comes with the fiduciary liability. And what that means is, if you're an employer and you're sponsoring a plan, you're responsible for monitoring the fees and the investments. And if something goes wrong, your employees, could potentially hold you responsible for that. So we wanted to address all 3 of those things when we built the program. We tried to design it to be as easy as possible to facilitate, and we're still working on making it easier as we go, based on an employer feedback and working with payroll companies. I mentioned this before, and I'm going to continue to mention it over and over again. There are no fees for employers to participate in this program. Again, it's completely self-sufficient or self-sustaining, based on the participant fees. And then of course, because employers aren't sponsoring this plan, you don't have that fiduciary liability. That responsibility falls on the board and all of our relevant contractors. It's our job to make sure that we are operating the program in the best interest of the savers and monitoring those fees and investments and making sure that we keep them performing the way they're supposed to and keep the fees low. All right, so hopefully you'll see some evidence of that as we go through, what it looks like to actually facilitate this program for your employees. So that's what we're going to talk about next. And really, it just comes to 4 steps for employers. Number 1, obviously, you got to register by your state required deadline. That's how it all gets started. But registration is a really easy process. You just go to our website using that notification that we sent you, because it's got an access code on it that you need to get registered. And you set up your username and password. You tell us who at your business is going to be sort of communicating with the program on a regular basis. And you tell us a little bit about your payroll, how you do it, what pay cycle you're on, who your payroll company is sometimes in case they're going to be involved. But it's a really simple process of setting up your account so that we know, again, who you are and how you run your payroll. And then after that, you're going to submit or upload a roster of your employees. And again, this is going to include all of your active employees that are W-2'd and who are 18 years or older and have a Social Security number or an ITIN. And then your last step is going to be to submit employee contributions for those of your employees that decide to participate as part of your existing pay period or pay cycle. So, every time you issue payroll, you'll do some deductions and you'll send those contributions to the program. And those last 2 steps are really the only 2 ongoing responsibilities for employers, is submitting and maintaining that roster. So, as employees are hired onto your company, you'll go in and you'll add them to your roster. And then when they leave, you can go in and mark them as inactive so that you can keep your roster cleaned up, make it easier for you guys so you're not fishing through a bunch of folks that aren't participating anymore. And then the last step is also obviously an ongoing responsibility. So as part of your existing payroll process for each pay period, you'll do the deductions in your payroll software and then submit those contributions to the program. And that'll work just like any other deduction and remission that you guys are already working on. So you guys see stuff like that all the time. It's no different from any of those. All right, a couple of things that employers will not have to do. And I've already mentioned a few of them. You will not incur any program fees, no cost for employers, or no fee for employers. Employers don't have fiduciary responsibility. Employers are not allowed to make an employer contribution. So unfortunately, unlike a 401k, for example, there's no employer match on this one. That's a great thing if you're trying to keep your costs low. But if you're looking for, that type of feature, then you'll probably want to look at those other plans on the private market to satisfy that one. And then there are a couple of things that employers should not do, must not do. Number 1 is encourage or discourage participation in CalSavers. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have a role in communicating the program to your employees. Although, the way we've designed the program, you can take sort of as much or as little role in that as you want to. You just have to make sure that, again, you're not actively encouraging or actively discouraging your employees from participating in the program. you shouldn't be providing advice about investment options, taxes, or participation in the program. That's generally something you want to keep away from anyway, unless your job is to do financial advice. But again, that keeps that legal fiduciary responsibility away from the employer if you're not, advising them on taxes or investments. Obviously, you're not going to be managing investment options, processing distributions, or managing any of the changes that your employees make, like changing their address, adding their beneficiary, or if they change their contribution rate. Again, our goal was to make this as easy as possible for the employer. So we removed all of those administrative responsibilities from you as the employer. If an employee needs to make a change like that, they contact the program directly. We'll take care of processing that information. And then if it's something that you need to know about, like say they change their contribution rate, we'll communicate that to you as the employer so that you know to update that in your payroll software by the next time you run payroll. Rest assured, so hopefully adding a little comfort to that, we've noticed both within our program since we started it, but also, from the industry at large, most folks, if they do participate, they end up, joining under the standard settings and never making changes. 90% of folks will just, stick with the default settings once they get enrolled. So you probably won't see a whole lot of updates, but you will see some sometimes. And we are working with the payroll companies to try to integrate our systems with payroll company systems so that they'll start to communicate directly with each other, and that'll even remove that responsibility from you guys. So stay tuned for that. We're working with the payroll companies and hoping to get things up and running by the end of the year for that. All right. So let's take a little look at the timeline from your perspective on what registration and facilitation looks like. And again, it all starts with receiving that notification that many of you have probably already received if you have more than 100 employees that contains your access code on it. Once you have that, you can register at any time. You could do it today, tomorrow if you wanted to, or wait till your state required deadline. You just need 3 pieces of information to get started. 1 is your federal EIN. 2 is your California payroll tax ID number, and then 3 is that CalSavers access code. And that's really for security purposes. We want to make sure that the right person is registering for the program. Once you get registered, you have 30 days to set up your account and upload your employee roster. So that's sort of an important thing to note for any of your business. If any of you employers on the call today are in the 2nd or 3rd deadline, you're not required to register until your deadline comes up. But once you do register, the regulations say that you've got 30 days to upload your roster. So that's a long-winded way of saying if you're not quite ready to start running the program and you're in the 2nd or 3rd wave, you might want to wait until you are ready before you start registering. Once you upload that employee roster, you'll have 30 days, or your employees will have 30 days to make their decision about whether or not they want to participate. And we'll go over this from the employee's perspective in just a second, but basically they have 3 options. They can do nothing, in which case they get automatically enrolled at the default setting. Number 2 is they can come to our website or call us over the phone and customize their account, sort of claim their account. And then option number 3 is opting out. From the employer's perspective during that 30 days, you're sort of just sitting and waiting to see which of your employees are going to decide to participate. But you can take this time to, contact your payroll company if you need help getting your deduction set up. There are a couple of easy steps that you can take to make sure that your payroll is ready to go after that 30-day employee decision period is up, so that when the 30 days have elapsed and your employees are enrolled in the program, you can begin initiating those deductions and sending the contributions for your participating employees to the program. And usually that's going to be the 1st or 2nd paycheck after that 30-day decision period ends for the employees. So that's the timeline for employers. And after that, you'll continue to, add new employees to your roster as they come in. And you will continue to make, the payroll contributions again as part of your existing payroll process. You shouldn't have to make huge changes to comply with the CalSavers. So that's the timeline. And that's really all the responsibilities that employers have, going forward. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was to talk a little bit about what the program looks for your employees, for the savers. The whole program is designed around an automatic payroll deduction individual retirement account, an IRA, just like any other IRA that you can get from your local bank or financial institution. The same rules apply as far as the operation goes. You know, the key difference here is we're partnering with you as the employer to facilitate the automatic enrollment of your employees and facilitate those payroll contributions, so that their contributions will be automatically deducted from their paycheck and deposited into this IRA account that they own. It's always in their name. All of the record keeping, again, is done by this private sector company. So the state doesn't even have access to your employee information, and gives them the opportunity to save in this IRA. Number two, again, it's completely voluntary for your savers. So there is this mandate for employers that you register your company and you submit your employees' information so that we can enroll them in the program. But it is an automatic enrollment program, so they do have to opt out if they don't want to participate, but they can opt out or back in at any time. You know, that's up to them in when and how they want to participate with the program. Our goal, just like our goal was to create a simple program for employers to facilitate, we wanted to design the program to be as easy as possible for your employees as well. And that starts with automatic enrollment, right? All of the research shows, especially in the field of behavioral economics, that all people need is a little nudge to get them started. And once they're on that path, they tend to stay on that path. So folks can get automatically enrolled with this program and, you know, end up in some default settings that we think are pretty appropriate for people based on their age, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But we also knew that it was really important for people to be able to customize their settings. So it's very simple, intuitive on our phone, website, or mobile app to make changes to your contribution rate or to look up the different investment options that we have. But we wanted to keep it simple. So there's 5 investment options available that we think sort of operate on the spectrum of conservative and aggressive, so that the people who do want to go and customize their settings can find something that fits for their preferences. Another key feature for your employees is that it's completely portable. So unlike a traditional 401k or pension, you know, that's tied to that particular employer, if you have a 401k and you leave that employer, chances are you're either going to be required to roll that money out of the program and into another one, or what most people tend to do is cash it out, right? There's a couple $1,000s in my savings account. I'm between jobs right now. That money looks a little bit better in my own bank account than it does in my retirement account. So that's unfortunately what most people do. But with CalSavers, it follows them wherever they go. So chances are, once this rollout is done, they might end up at another CalSavers participating employer, in which case their contributions from the new employer will automatically, you know, if they decide to participate at the new employer, will automatically be contributed into their existing account. So people won't have multiple accounts if they work for multiple employers. So it's completely portable, follows them wherever they go in the future. If they end up somewhere where they're not a CalSavers participating employer, you know, they can keep their account and let it grow on the side. They can make their own contributions into the account if they want to, but if not, they can just ignore it. Or they can move the money from CalSavers into another qualifying plan. I would always recommend, though, that they check with a tax advisor before doing that, because they're, you know, depending on how they're moving it, there could be some consequences for that. And then, of course, we wanted to be super low cost for savers. So again, I mentioned there's no fee for employers. Program is going to be entirely self-sufficient based on the fees that we charge your savers. And we wanted to be mindful of keeping those costs low. So the legislation that created the program said that we had to have our fees below 1% by year 6 of the program. But we're happy to say that at launch, our fees are already below 1%, depending on the investment option that a person chooses. Remember, I mentioned there were 5 of them. They will pay anywhere between 0.83% and 0.95% per year. So in other words, that's 83 cents to 95 cents for every $100 that they have in their account per year. And then the other good thing about our fees, sorry, I'm shaking my head at myself for saying a good thing about fees, but you know, built into the contract that we have with the program administrator, a company called the Census, they're the ones who run the day-to-day operations of the program, do all the record keeping. The portion of the fee that they get automatically goes down as the program grows. So eventually, once we're fully rolled out and we reach scale, we'll be looking at fees in the range of 0.30%, which will make us one of the most competitive IRAs on the market. So very excited about those fees, as much as a person could be excited about fees. But again, our goal, low cost for savers and your employees. All right, so let's look at that timeline again, but this time from the employee's perspective. So from the employee's perspective, it all starts when you take that step during your registration process of uploading their information into the employer portal. I didn't mention earlier when we were going through the timeline, there's a few different ways that you can do it because we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you as the employer to get this information up. Most large employers choose to submit their employee roster by just uploading a simple Excel spreadsheet that has all the information that we need to get the employee's account set up. But once you upload your roster of eligible employees into the portal, CalSavers is responsible for doing all of the communication with your employees. So we'll send out their welcome letter. We actually send out 3 notifications to each employee before that 30-day decision period is up, because we want to let people know that we're here. We want to give them as much of an opportunity to make that decision to participate or not as possible. But once we start sending out those notifications, that 30-day employee decision period begins. As I mentioned before, after the 30 days are up, the employees are enrolled into the program, and you as the employer can begin initiating those payroll deductions from their paycheck. But during those 30 days, I've already mentioned this briefly, but we'll go over it in more detail, the employee really has 3 options. Number 1 is to do nothing and keep the standard settings. And in the next couple of slides, we're going to go over what that looks like. Number 2 is they can come to our account or come to our website or call us on the phone or download our mobile app for that matter, and customize their account. They can choose their own contribution rate, they can choose their investment setting. And then option number 3 is they can opt out. And we even wanted to make this part as simple as possible. They can, if they get the paper notification from us, they can, sign their opt-out form and send it back. They can opt out online, or they can opt out by phone. And we're even working on one of those automated voice response systems so that people can opt out on the phone without even talking to a person if they're sure they want to do that. So let's look a little bit deeper into those option number 1 and option number 2 and talk about what the default settings look like versus the ways that they can customize their account. So the default settings or the standard settings look like this. We've started them out with a Roth IRA. Now, for those of you who might be a little less familiar with how those IRAs work, the Roth IRA is the one where the contributions go into the account after you've already paid taxes on the money. And we thought that, we chose the Roth IRA on purpose because we think it has some really powerful features for this program. Number 1 is the tax deferred growth. So any money that you put into the account now, you've already paid taxes on it. But as it grows and, say the $10 that you put in when you're 20 is worth $40 or $50 when you retire, multiply that by a whole career's worth of contribution, right? But all of that growth is tax-free when you withdraw it. It's your money. You've already paid taxes on it. You don't have to report that money to Uncle Sam again. All yours. The second sort of compelling feature of that Roth IRA is that because all of the contributions were already taxed on the way in, which basically makes it your money, right? Uncle Sam doesn't have any more claim on it. Folks can actually withdraw the contributions that they made into the account without paying taxes or penalties, even if they make a withdrawal before they reach retirement age. Now, obviously, if they withdraw interest that they've earned before they reach retirement age, those can potentially be taxed, or they could have a fee on it. But we thought it was really, really important, knowing that a lot of the folks who are going to be participating in this program, the first time they've ever had access to this type of investment vehicle, people would just feel more comfortable knowing that if they had an emergency, they can pull the money out. So again, we thought that flexibility and access was important for the population that we're dealing with. When it comes to the contribution rate, we decided to start it off at 5%, and that does feature an automatic escalation. feature, which basically means that we start you off at 5%, but we're going to bump up your rate 1% every year until it reaches 8%. And then we're going to stop doing that. And again, that comes back to the concept of behavioral economics. You get them on the path with a simple nudge, and then you gently raise their contribution rate so that they can achieve a more meaningful savings over their career, but do it in such small increments that they likely won't notice. We had actually just done our first round of automatic enrollment this last January, and we were pretty excited to see that 90% of the folks who were having their automatic escalation at the beginning of the year stuck with that and didn't make the change afterwards. And of course, we do notify folks that, every December, like, hey, it's automatic escalation season. Go ahead and come to the website and let us know if you want to pause this, but otherwise we're going to bump up your rate 1% in January. And then of course we communicate that to the employers, to let you know whose rate is going up and who decided to put a pause on that. It's not your responsibility to track it, in other words. All right, and then for the investments, the default setting is this. So the first $1,000 that anybody contributes to the account, it's going to go into a money market fund, and that's one of those funds that there's very little risk, right? Because we wanted to make sure that people's initial contributions were protected from the ups and downs of the market. Again, because knowing that most people are, that this is going to be new for a lot of folks, we didn't want them to, open their first statement or go to the website for the first time and see that their money's gone down. So the first $1,000 goes into this capital preservation fund, the money market fund. But then after that, every contribution they make after that first $1,000 goes into a target retirement fund. Now that's one of those mutual fund style investments that automatically adjust to become more conservative over time. So if someone starts out, they're 20 years old, it's going to be a little bit more aggressive, right? Because those folks have time to ride out the market. But every 5 years, it's automatically going to adjust its balance between stocks and bonds so that it becomes safer, more conservative as they get older. Because once you get closer to retirement age, you have less time to make up the money if something happens. So, I mentioned earlier that our goal was to get folks in something that was appropriate for their age. This is what I meant. So everybody, even if they don't make any choices, we're going to automatically adjust their asset allocation so that they're in something that's age appropriate for them. All right, so let's talk about the customization options. Now, number one, we knew that some folks are going to want that traditional IRA. Maybe the owners of the business make too much to qualify for a Roth IRA because Roth IRAs do have income limits. Or perhaps you're working with a tax advisor and they're saying, you know what? If you go with a traditional IRA, you can take a tax deduction this year, and that's actually better for your finances than waiting, than waiting until later. So you can recharacterize to the traditional IRA. Again, we thought that was important for the high income earners so that they can participate, but it's also important for people who want to be able to take a tax deduction for the current year. If that's their preference, then they're welcome to switch to the traditional IRA. Contribution rate is completely flexible. Employees have complete control over this. So they can actually choose anything between 1% and 100% of their salary. Haven't seen anyone choose 100% yet. I want to shake that person's hand if I ever see it. but yeah, anything between 1% and 100%, as long as they stay below the IRS limits that are set for IRAs, which is $6,000 per year if you're under 50. $7,000 per year if you're over 50 and you qualify for those catch-up contributions. The other important feature of the Roth IRA is that you can actually contribute throughout your lifetime. With the traditional IRAs, once you reach a certain age, you're not allowed to contribute anymore. And in fact, you're required to make distributions on an annual basis in that traditional. But Roth IRA, you can participate as long as you meet the other qualifications for your entire life. And then, of course, that automatic escalation feature is optional, so they can turn off or on that feature anytime they want. All right, let's talk about investments. I already mentioned the two options that are in the default settings. There's the money market fund and the target retirement fund. The other three options that we have available are a core bond fund, which is going to be a little bit more on the conservative side. We have our global equity fund, which is a mix of stocks and bonds from around the world. That's probably going to be a little bit more on the aggressive side. And then, of course, we did add a sustainable balance fund. They call it ESG, that stands for environmental, social, and governance, where all of the underlying investments in that one are chosen based on, if they're environmentally friendly, if they have good social responsibility, and good governance. So folks who want to invest their money, I like to say with their heart, are welcome to do that if that's something they want to do. All right. As you can see, we wanted this to be as easy as possible for both employers and savers. So with that goes hand in hand with accessibility, right? We needed to make sure that people could get the information they needed easily and in a way that they feel comfortable with. So one of those ways is on our website, right? CalSavers.com. You can get resources for savers like program details, all of the forms, answers to your frequently asked questions. The same for employers. There's a dedicated page on the website for employers that has all the tools and tips and templates, program details, registration timelines, and again, frequently asked questions. If folks are more comfortable working with us on the phone, we of course have a customer service line. When you call the customer service line, you're calling the record keeper, you're not calling the state. But we've got dedicated lines for the savers and for the employers. So if you have questions about how facilitating works or how registration works, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Well, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then of course we do have an email box available for you to email us. We have multilingual support on the phone and the email. If you call us, you can get, native speakers, English and Spanish, but we also have access to a translation service. So if your employees if you or your employees have any special language needs or feel more comfortable interacting with us in a native language, just let us know and we can get a translation service on the line. And then we also have one-on-one support. And this comes in two forms, actually. Number one, we have a dedicated onboarding team in our call center that's going to reach out to you after you register. That's their job. They'll reach out to you. They'll say, we saw that you just registered. We're here to help you through this process to make sure that you're compliant and to make sure that it's as easy as possible for you. Now, if you'd rather work with someone local, we also have in-state representatives, 7 of them based throughout the state with, territories marked, who can provide one-on-one support. Before the COVID situation, they were actually going to employers and having these meetings in person. We've had to, scale that back, and we're doing a lot more Zoom meetings. But we can walk you through one-on-one the registration process on a Zoom meeting, or we can do presentations for your employees and answer any of their questions. So, folks to assist you with registration and account setup, and of course assist your employees. Or do presentations for your employees. And we have multilingual support there too. We could do presentations in English, Spanish, and Chinese. So, if that's something you're interested in, you can always reach out to us at fieldsupport@calsavers.com, and we can get you in touch with your local representative and start making arrangements for either a meeting to help you through the registration or a presentation for your employees. But again, multilingual support available on all our channels, because again, we want to make sure that both employers and savers have access to the information they need when they need it in a way that makes them feel comfortable and can interact with us in a way that makes them feel comfortable. Oh, in addition to this, we also have a bilingual mobile app. Again, resources for savers and employers, but knowing that not everybody has access to a computer at work or even at home, but a lot of people these days have smartphones. We did roll out a mobile app full service so people can check on their account, check their balances, make changes like change the rate and address changes and all that kind of stuff. Full service mobile app for those folks who want to use that. All right, so that pretty much brings us to the end of the presentation, but I did list a couple of frequently asked questions that we got, or that we tend to get from ag employers, and I've covered a lot of it already, but I think it's worth going over it again before we open it up to answer your actual questions. But one of the most common ones is, we have a lot of different types of employees, right? We've got full-time, we've got part-time, we've got seasonal, we've got H-2A workers. How are they counted? Are they eligible? And the answer is yes. All of your employees are eligible if they're W-2'd by your business and they're 18 years or older. Doesn't matter how many hours they work or if they're seasonal. If they're active on your roster now, they should be included in your CalSavers and should have access if they want to participate. Ag employers often, talk to us about, how high their turnover is, right? They have employees that get hired on and they only stay for a couple of weeks, or, with their seasonal employees coming and going. How much time do employers have to add their employees, and what do you do if they don't stay long? We tried to build a little bit of flexibility here into our regulations. So the regulations say that you have 30 days to upload new employees' information once they become eligible for the program. So if they're 18, that's the date they're hired. But having that 30 days flexibility gives you some wiggle room. We've had some ag employers that have decided that, it's easier since I'm hiring, sometimes hundreds of people per week, especially during harvest season. It's easier if I just hold on to those and upload them every week or every 2 weeks. As long as you're getting employee information added within 30 days of them being hired, you're good. And that also means if they only stay on for a week or so and you haven't uploaded them yet, you don't need to worry about it. But other employers have decided, it's easier if I just make this part of my onboarding process. I'm going in and I'm adding them to my payroll software anyway. I'm just going to go in and log them into CalSavers really quick too. So there's some flexibility there for you. Another one that I've heard, and I think that this comes a lot from presentations that employers are hearing from, other folks who are offering 401ks or something like that. And that is that CalSavers comes with a whole bunch of tracking. You have to track which employees opt out. You have to track which employees, change their contribution rates and stuff like that. Not true. We track everything for you. So we have a really easy, intuitive, user-friendly employer portal, and we keep all of that information up to date for you in real time. So if you have employees opt out, it'll show right away on the website. If you have an employee make a change to your contribution rate, it will show right away on your website, and we'll send you an email before your next pay period saying, hey, you've had an employee change their contribution rate. Go to our website before you upload your payroll or before you run your payroll, and we'll actually color code it in the website so that you can find it easily. And then, I mentioned before, we're working with payroll companies to try to integrate our systems. They call it an API. So eventually, once we have these payroll companies up and running, your payroll software will hopefully communicate directly with CalSavers and eliminate that extra step. All right. A lot of folks are also hearing that CalSavers says that you can't talk to your employees about the program, and that's not true either. I did mention before, and I think that the source of that is what I said earlier about, the employer is not supposed to encourage or discourage participation with the employee. And that makes folks a little bit nervous. But I think that, employers have a very important role to play here as long as they keep it factual, right? You're onboarding a new employee. You say, hey, we're a CalSavers participating employer. It's this retirement savings program. Keep an eye out for the information from the program. And, it'll explain all about it. The other thing that I recommend, we've created some communication templates, both in English and Spanish. They're available on our website that you can either send out to people or print out and give to people that says, hey, we're registering for CalSavers, keep an eye out for this program. And then, of course, you also have the ability to call on us to help you educate your employees. So we've got all of our, materials online. And then we also have our field team available to come out and do presentations for your employees so they know what's going on. And that sort of answers that last question too. What is the best way for my employees to learn about the program? Again, our website, our mobile app, our call center are available for you, whenever you need help. We also, again, have all of the tips and templates and resources available for employers. And again, we're willing to come out. Well, eventually we'll be coming out again, but right now we're doing Zoom meetings, to help educate your employees about it. But eventually, as soon as it's safe to do so and we get the green light, we'll be out in the field again, doing presentations for employees and helping them out. So I'm sure that only covered a few of your questions. I'm pretty sure I saw a few pop up in the question or in the chat field while I was doing this presentation. So I'm looking forward to answering all those questions. I respect that a lot of you might need to hop off when the hour is up, but I will stay on as long as it takes to get those questions answered for you. In the meantime, I will leave this screen up. It's got my contact information on it. It also has our website and all of our socials, CalSavers.com. I understand that everybody should also get a copy of this deck and the recording afterwards. So thank you very much for joining, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, so much for all of that great information. So we got a couple of messages early on. We have the retirement plan question in particular as it relates to an employer who has a retirement plan. I'm guessing one of the qualifying plans, but it only covers their full-time employees, not their seasonal employees. Do they need to modify their retirement plan to comply now that it covers seasonal employees as well? So what are your, I guess, thoughts around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, there is no need to modify your plan at all. If you are, sponsoring an employer-sponsored plan like a 401k, even if it only covers some of your employees, you are fine. And we should, again, be able to see that. But if you do receive a notice, just give us a call, let us know, hey, we've already got a 401k in place. As long as it's a qualifying plan, you are exempt from the mandate. You're good to go.
Great, thank you. The other one, and I think you might have answered this question, but it was asked a couple of times, are handouts to give employees or information to give employees on the program?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to our website, again, it's CalSavers.com. We've got, and if you hover your mouse over the employer section, you'll see an option for resources. We have copies of all of our flyers, including the information packet that we send employees when they're when employers upload their information. So, feel free to check out what's out there. You can print them out. You can send them out to your employees. We wanted to make sure that you had what you needed to feel comfortable letting your employees know about the program. But again, just to reiterate, there isn't any requirement from the program that you play that role if you don't want to. It's our responsibility to deliver those welcome kits. But we definitely understand that if you're the HR person, you're probably thinking to yourself, if employees have any questions or they don't get their paper right away, they're going to come to me to get more information. So yes, please do feel free to pull the information from our website. All of our flyers are available in 5 languages right now, and we're working on expanding that. So hopefully you'll find what you need up there.
And great, and I think that was the other question. So you've got the languages on there as well.
Yes.
Perfect.
Right. And then, we don't have Urdu yet, though.
Yeah.
I see that. I see that in the chat.
And then the other one are deductions pre-tax. I think you answered that.
Yeah, but that's actually a really important question. So I'm glad it came up. So the deductions are always going to be done post-tax. So just to get into detail, the calculation is based on their gross pay, but the deduction comes from the net, and it's always going to be a post-tax contribution. Even if the employee changes to that traditional option, you as the employer will still, you won't be required to report anything to the IRS, or it doesn't affect the withholdings at all as far as taxes go. So yeah, always post-tax. And then if the employee did choose that traditional route, we'll send them the information that they need to take the tax deduction at the end of the year. So the employers aren't responsible for that extra administrative work.
Great. And then I think here's another question around seasonal employees being offered CalSavers and then regular employees being offered a 401k plan. So can they do both? Are they required? Yeah.
That's another great question. And the answer is actually no. So once you're an exempt employer, since you're already offering that 401k, you are not allowed to register for CalSavers So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to facilitate your employees' access to CalSavers. You couldn't automatically enroll them. But like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we do have that individual enrollment option. So if your seasonal employees wanted to join the program on their own, they can go to our website, set up their own account. Once they have their account set up, you can actually help them with the payroll contribution. But yeah, you won't be able to register for the program and then submit their information for automatic enrollment. They'd have to join on their own.
Great. And then do you have to upload the information each time an employee is laid off?
That's another great question. So no, there's no requirement for you guys to let us know when employees leave. But as I mentioned, we do keep your roster up to date on the CalSavers employer portal. So, when if you wanted to, I would probably recommend it. You go in, you mark them as inactive, and then when you pull up your active roster, you won't see them. You won't see your laid off employees anymore. But there's no requirement on our end that you notify us. Just for your new employees is there a requirement that you notify us.
Great. And then someone just wants to know if there's some sort of form as an employer that they can give the employee to complete if they want to opt out.
Yeah, so the opt-out form is available on our website, and it will need to be signed by the employee, obviously. But if you wanted to, you could keep copies available. But again, it's not your responsibility to hand those out. We will deliver those to the employee, and just sort of my gut reaction to that, because you want to make sure that there's never any question that you're encouraging or discouraging participation. You'll just want to make sure that if you are keeping those available, that you're not putting yourself in a position where you're, might be doing something where folks are perceiving that you're discouraging participation. But they are available, and you can help your employees find them if they need them.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. I think that was it for the questions, unless someone else has a question. So again, Jonathan, I want to thank you for your time. Again, everyone, we're usually about a week out for posting these on our website, but we'll get them posted along with the PowerPoint presentation. And thank you again, Jonathan, for your time in answering all of our questions, and hopefully, again, getting individuals information that they need to keep their businesses going. So I want to thank you again for your time.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for the opportunity. It's really helpful to have AgSafe's help getting in front of employers and helping them know what's coming and what they need to do about it. So thank you very much.
Thank you again. Everyone have a good day.